Hello and welcome back to Jarvis Johnson Gold, the premium channel that is free. It is free, but if you're watching this, you're premium. And a crime has occurred, a large crime, a grand criminal act. Over $1 million in Pokemon cards have been stolen. They've been thieved. Team Rocket is blasting in again. They didn't steal Pokemon cards, but like you get the idea. One of the biggest trading card crimes in modern history has occurred. And no, we're not talking about the Logan Paul thing, any of the Logan Paul things, actually. We're talking about millions of dollars in Pokemon product that was stolen from the factory that makes Pokemon cards and tried to be sold on the black market or the gray market. Or somebody just walked into a card shop with $1 million in cards and tried to sell them. We will get to the bottom of this, but there's this article from Kotaku. This may be the biggest Pokemon card theft in history and it's causing drama. So essentially this photo went viral on Reddit. Saw this on an FB group. Allegedly, printing company worker stole hits off the line and tried to offload them to an LGS. Here you can see a bunch of shiny cardboard on a table. A lot of the words that I just said may be foreign to you, so I will explain. Saw this on an FB group. That's Facebook. I know no one uses it anymore, but that's what that is. It's a social network. Allegedly, printing company worker stole hits. So hits, when referring to trading cards, is the rare chase cards, the valuable cards that every set has that you want to pull. They're the rarest ones in the set. They're always the most valuable cards in any given set. Those were the cards that were stolen. So we're talking about the big boys. Specifically, we're talking about a Gengar VMAX alternate art. Those doesn't matter if you're not into Pokemon, but I'm just telling you. For those who are curious, this is from the Fusion Strike set of Pokemon cards. It was released in November of 2021. It features Mew on the pack art. It's got a big Mew card that's an alternate art. It's got a big Gengar card. It's got a big Espeon, I think. There's like an Inteleon in there, I think. And a bunch of these like rainbow guys. Lots of shiny cardboard for the taking is what a criminal must have thought. So allegedly printing company worker, these cards are printed at a factory, and we'll talk about the process by which they are made a little bit, as I find it really fascinating. Stole them off the line, so you'll see the factory and where the actual crime must have taken place, or probably around where it took place, and tried to offload them to an LGS. LGS stands for local game store. Basically any mom and pop card game store. For me, it was Mega Comics and Games in Gainesville, Florida, located right next to a Toys R Us. That's where I went to the Toys R Us as a kid and played in the Pokemon League. And then as a slightly older kid, played in Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments against students at the University of Florida, where I was defeated handily by them as they were adults and I was a child. That's a local game store, any mom and pop game store. Before we dive into the crime, I want you to understand the magnitude of the crime, okay? Because I'm sure to some of you, this just looks like a bunch of tiny square rectangles that are shiny. And square rectangles, stop writing that comment. I misspoke. A bunch of shiny cardboard on a table, but we mentioned earlier that these are hits. These are the rarest cards. So how rare are we talking? Well, let's take this Mew VMAX alternate art. If I were to type into google.com, Fusion, that's not how you spell Fusion, Fusion Strike Mew VMAX Alt Art TCG Player, common website for buying cards. This card in a near mint quality, which is what you're going to get out of a pack, is $88.60. Let's refer back to that photo. Look at how fucking many of these cards there are. This is taken from above, so you can't really see how tall the stack of cards is. Here's a stack of cards sitting on their side, which is about yay big. So these stacks are like tall, right? A box like this holds about 800 cards, right? So I'm guessing of these Mews, we're probably seeing 800 of them. And you've got even more of these Gengars behind here. Let's just round up, $89 times 800. Well, that stack is $71,000 in cards. Roughly, it could be more, it could be less, but you're getting a sense of the order of magnitude, right? This Gengar over here, also these prices have gone down in the 2 years since this set came out. This theft allegedly happened before the set even released because it happened during the printing process for the first run of the cards. But these cards were at an all-time premium when they were stolen and attempted to be sold. Oh, did I say the Mew is expensive? The Gengar is $176. There's more Gengars than Mews. Are you seeing now? Are you seeing now the scale of this theft? Now, these cards in this quadrant here, the Espeons, the Inteleons, this Espeon VMAX, you see how big the stack is? It's $140. This Inteleon, there's a bunch of them, less money, $32. Still tens of thousands of dollars of product. Let me put something else into perspective. How rare are these cards from a given pack? It's hard to say for sure, but people have opened thousands and thousands of packs and tried to get a gauge of the ratios that these cards are pulled at. These are not perfect, but again, we're talking about the order of magnitude. That Mew, 1 in 2,000. That Espeon, 1 in 1,400. That Gengar, 1 in 1,000. All of these cards, these money cards, are like 1 out of 1,000 packs are you going to get these. So to open 1,000 packs, a pack is going to run you like $3.50, $4. So we're talking $4,000 to pull one if you're trying. Now that's a waste of money. Obviously, the way this works is that everybody opens the packs, and the people who don't want their really rare card, they sell it, they trade it away. That's how the market for these things works. The Pokemon company who was being stolen from, these pulls represent millions of dollars of packs. So we probably saw 2,000 of those cards that are each 1 out of 1,000. That's already 2 million packs represented based on the pull rate. That is like the scale of this crime. And that's why it's a big deal. So a seller somewhere has what is conservatively hundreds of thousands of dollars of stolen Pokemon product. It's either right as the set is coming out or before the set is coming out. And they're looking for buyers. The seller is not the thief. We have confirmation on that. So the cards have already changed hands at least a couple of times. And now this buyer who, we don't know who they are, but you've got to assume they're suspicious because this is a pretty suspicious thing to acquire. You've got to know you're dealing with stolen product. Stolen product pops up on the market for every Pokemon set just about, usually in much smaller numbers, and usually because someone who works near where these cards are being manufactured pulls a little something off the line. Never has it been done or seen at this scale that we're aware of. Asterisk, except for one time a long time ago. We can talk about that in a sec. So the seller is looking for buyers. And all of this information I have corroborated with some of the sources that I will reference, specifically Rattle Pokemon, who has done a lot of investigation into this. I'm referencing this Kotaku article. I will provide links to those sources. While I do have sources, some of the details are a little muddy, so I could be wrong on some of the finer details, but I'm going to do my best to deliver what happened. So I talked about this on stream, and I talked to a lot of people that work at game stores like this. And if you're a game store and someone reaches out to your shop, which they did so remotely, they didn't walk into the store with all these cards, any card shop that the seller reaches out to is going to be suspicious of them because there are so many cards. Like I said, it would take millions and millions of dollars to procure this much of these pulls in the normal order of things. So the first place people are going to go to is this was stolen, or it's fake. It's stolen or it's fake. And it says so in the article. Trading Card World, which is the name of the shop that the seller tried to sell the cards to, said that they were immediately suspicious, believing the only way someone could have had such a concentrated number of rare cards from one set was by making counterfeits or stealing them. They immediately contacted the Pokemon Company, which is the right thing to do. And the Pokemon Company is owned by Nintendo. And I don't know if you've heard recently about how litigious Nintendo is. If you were so much as thinking about one of Nintendo's intellectual property in a way that they do not intend, you better watch your back. So regardless of whether or not it's right, Nintendo has ruined people's lives who fucked with their properties. Look no further than this guy who sold hacked Nintendo Switches named Gary Bowser, and that's not a joke. After serving 40 months in prison, so do the crime, do the time, he did the time, and now he has to pay an additional 25 to 30% of his income for the rest of his life paying back the $10 million a court decided that he owes Nintendo. You don't want the Nintendo smoke. That's all I'm saying. Knowing how Nintendo behaves legally, the right thing to do is to contact Nintendo. Like, don't even think about it. Just contact Nintendo. So this card shop did the right thing. They contacted Nintendo. My understanding is that a private investigator was hired, which is commonly done by these companies because they can do things out of the jurisdiction of like the police, you know, like there have to be more disclosures with police. And also it's scarier if a private investigator working on behalf of Millennium Print Group, who's working on behalf of the Pokemon Company International, who's working on behalf of Nintendo, reaches out to you and says, hey, you have stolen product, send it here or else you're going to send it there. So that's what happened. The seller who had these cards was not able to sell them. He was intercepted by a private investigator, and it was agreed upon to send the stolen product to TCW, this card shop, and the private investigator then picked those cards up and took them back to the Pokemon Company, who then destroyed them. So that is what happened to the stolen cards after they were discovered. But how did they steal the cards in the first place? I'll tell you, my premium viewers, because now I get to talk about one of my favorite things. By the way, weird video for me, right? This is something that's just genuinely interesting to me that I thought would be a fun story to tell. It's got crime, it's got drama, it's got intrigue, and it's got one of my favorite things, Pokemon. So let's move on to how Pokemon cards are made and how one evildoer, I guess, was able to exploit that process to steal millions of dollars of product. The process by which Pokemon cards are made is a pretty secretive process up until recently. I mean, we understand generally the concept of how cards are made, but we've never peeked behind the curtain at specifically how the Pokemon Company does stuff in the modern era. Until a video was released by Millennium Print Group, the printing company that makes Pokemon cards, documenting the whole process. It's been removed from their YouTube channel, so hopefully that doesn't put me into any weird situation, but lots of people have uploaded reactions to it, and someone has re-uploaded the video here, so if it gets cut out of this video, then you now know why. So the process starts out with them getting a spreadsheet of information from Japan, then they create their own Photoshop templates, and they do lots of translations. They do lots of proofreading and checking. This video shows designers in Photoshop working on Pokemon cards, which to me is like the coolest shit in the world. Yeah, I mean, I just find that interesting. Each expansion takes 3 weeks per language. I do believe that the process for Japan and then the process for America plus all the other languages is separate. It's not fully explained how that works, but there's lots of design iterations. There's the process by which texture is mapped onto the cards. There's lots of testing of the quality of the cards. There's test prints made. You can see the sheets of cards that are printed from the printer and how they're compared to make sure that colors match. And once the test prints have been made, they create printing plates so that they can be produced en masse in the millions and millions and millions of quantity by the printing company. Oh, editing for English, French, Italian, German, Spanish, and Portuguese. There you go. They're working on the packaging. They're working on figuring out what the name of the set's going to be. Yeah, but then we got pre-press. Printer processes the card files. You can see cards are in sheets. Trading cards are printed in sheets. It's how it's happened for as long as I am aware. And you actually can find, they're extremely rare, but they are out there, uncut sheets of some of the earliest sets of Pokemon cards or Yu-Gi-Oh cards or Magic cards, like they exist. But they come from these printing factories, and mostly any sort of product that isn't authorized to be released is supposed to be destroyed. But you know how sometimes you take a pen from work home? Imagine if it was like rare Pokemon cards. It's basically the same thing. So this is where they create the proof. They check the colors, make sure all the colors match, because you have to not only check things beforehand, but you have to check things periodically during the printing process to make sure that consistency is attained, because naturally this machinery is going to, like, something in this long pipeline of processes is going to go haywire and something's going to not add up. But they're utilizing like cameras that detect the color compositions of the cards, and like there's just so much high-tech shit going on during this process, which I think is really interesting. So this is the printing plates before printing begins, lamination. Here you can see them laminating the foil to all of the sheets, and you can see these gigantic sheets of cards. So they process 15,000 of these sheets per day, which you'll see how many cards that translates to at the end of the day. And this is on a daily basis. 3,300 sheets per pallet. Look at this. This fucking cinder block looking thing is 3,300 sheets of cardstock that is going to be turned into Pokemon cards. It's baffling to like you see a few cards escaped, right? Like in very rare cards at that. But considering how many cards are made on a daily basis, it's impressive that more shit doesn't go wrong. 220,000 double-sided sheets printed per day, 26.62 million cards per day. And this shit is running all the time because it takes months for this process to go through. They're making Pokemon sets every few months. Like, this is just, dare I say it, redonkulous. Look at this. Look at this. They're checking registration and ink density, right? Like they've got cameras everywhere to like detect, to use computer vision, I assume, to detect that things are appearing as they should, that the density of the ink en masse is as it should be. And misprints do happen, but they're few and far between. All right. Now here is where the magic happens. Card finishing. This is where we are going to see these sheets be sliced up into individual cards and then loaded into packs, which is where it all goes wrong. Sheets are fed through a slitting machine where they slit all the cards, and then you get these you just get these rectangles, these sharp rectangles that don't exactly look like the rounded playing card feel of a regular card. And the reason for that is because there's another step that we're about to see. Every step of this, I'm just looking at if I was on the line, would I be able to steal something? You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay, cool. There's, this guy, what if he just run away? What if he just runs away? He like books it for the door, right? I assume they have cameras everywhere, but still. Yeah, no, don't mind me. Just quality control checking. A giant stack of cards sticking out of my chest. It's very obvious. What do you mean? I love my work here at the printing group. And now here's where the corners are cut. I just think it's interesting how much human intervention there is in this process, because you would think they could just automate everything, but $1 billion industry hinges on this process. I assume they are optimizing it to the best way that makes sense for right now. Well, look, I'm not PR for the Pokemon company, but it's really interesting how I'm sure a lot of these steps haven't existed at various points in time and then have needed to be added because of things that go wrong. And after this theft, I imagine there's going to be a lot more red tape that gets added to this process. It's probably going to be even more hell to work in this like factory environment, but that's the situation. It's crazy to see this thing operate. So here you can see one of these like sheet cut cards and then like one that's actually had its borders cut. Yeah, periodic pulls for quality control. Here's another place where I'm like, what happens to those cards? Are they destroyed? Are you sure? So now we're pretty close to where things go wrong. You can see here that the cards have been like sorted and have been put in a big box. And this just says like Sun and Moon 6. This is like the 6th set in the Sun and Moon block. Booster rare. I don't know what Form 3 means, and obviously English, but booster rare. So this is a rare card. I don't know what words they use for what rarities, but there's only one rare card per Pokemon pack. Which rare card you get amongst the rare cards is based on probability. Some cards are extremely rare, 1 in 1,000 packs. Others are 1 in 2 packs, and those aren't super interesting cards. But from here, these cards of a specific rarity make their way into this hopper in the card collation process, where they put the cards of the different types and rarities into the packs. That is where everyone thinks this person must have gotten the rare cards in such high density, because there has to be a box like this that contains cards that are of this rarity, because they need to then get sorted into packs at whatever random probability that they're seeded for. Here is where the packs get made. I don't know exactly what each of these machines do. I don't work at this company, but you can tell that cards are loaded in here into these hoppers, and they're different types of cards. And they've got, I think, little papers that show probably for a given set which cards are to be loaded where. This is kind of how the probabilities get determined. And one would imagine that there's got to be ways that they detect issues that occur. No pun intended. It's very rare that you see a pack that doesn't have a rare in it. That's called an error pack. They do happen. Out of millions and millions of packs every month that this company is creating, they happen a very small percentage of the time. These are set symbols, I think. And this one's highlighted. Maybe that's because they're working on multiple packs and multiple products at once. Like here's Ultra Prism. They were working on over here. They're doing packs for Ultra Prism, and then maybe they're also doing packs for Forbidden Light, which is so Forbidden Light here is the newest set. So this is Sun and Moon 7. So maybe they're showing this from a different time period, but we saw things from Ultra Prism, which is Sun and Moon 6. This doesn't matter. I'm just trying to put together the timeline of this. But anyway, these are set symbols from the individual sets, of which there's multiple released every year. And I imagine that they're trying to make sure that there's not the streams aren't getting crossed in the factory. But this person's hand right here is the thief. They're who stole the cards. They could just take them right out of the hopper and they could run away, I guess. Just kidding. But, like, one would imagine that like someone with access to the cards here would be able to like do the theft. I have it on good authority. Rattle Pokemon, I'm referencing something from his video. In his video, he says that the theft was caught on camera. And boy, what I wouldn't do to see that footage. And I would love to see how that actually went down. It's hard to imagine one person makes it out of the factory with that many cards, but who knows how it happened. But anyway, cards are loaded in here. They're sorted into various products. So we don't know for sure whether or not this was the moment that the cards were stolen, but we do know that the cards were already like cards, like they weren't stolen any further in the process. They had to go through this process of getting cut out of the sheets. They had to get their corners cut off. They could have been stolen from some sort of QA check area, but the amounts of them that there are make it seem like these were the ones that were going to go into packs. While we don't know this for sure, we do, based on this process, kind of have a sense of where things might have gone down. Directly from here, we go into the cards actually being put into packs. So you can see cards kind of being shoveled from a bunch of different directions all together and then getting wrapped up by this, the sheet of the wrapping. They've got their code cards in the back because every pack has a code card. You can see both of these images on the backs of the cards here. So these are packs that are about to get wrapped up, and then here you can see them getting wrapped, and they haven't been crimped yet. So the crimping is just when they seal it, like when they use like a bag. If you've ever used one of those like bag resealers, it's like that, but like at a industrial level. Cards are weighed to confirm card count. Sometimes this process fails, and sometimes you get packs that are super light. Sometimes you get packs that are super thick. But for the most part, there's a lot of consistency. And then they're added by hand into a booster box, which I would never have guessed that they were added by hand to a booster box. But yeah, 36 packs in a booster box. Then they're added by hand to a booster case, 6 boxes to a booster case. Also wouldn't have expected that. And then they get a little label that says what set they're from, and then they're shipped off. So we don't know what happened to the original thief, but according to my sources, primarily Rattle Pokemon's video, the investigation has concluded and the perpetrator has been caught. Most of the cards that were stolen have been accounted for and destroyed. And there was an additional controversy, which is that this set in specific, Fusion Strike, is one that has fairly low pull rates. Like it's really hard to pull the good cards that you want to pull. When people saw this theft had happened, they were like, well, that's why I couldn't pull my rare cards from the set, because someone stole all the good cards out. Pokemon Company has said, no, we detected this. We destroyed these cards. We reprinted them. None of the product was affected. That's their statement. They gave a statement to Kotaku. And their statement is as follows. We take the protection of our IP and associated products very seriously. This matter remains under investigation. Allegedly, it's completed, according to Rattle, so this is potentially old, and we cannot comment on details at this time. However, we can confirm that Sword and Shield booster packs and products were shipped to retail as intended, and we have no indication that the integrity of the products were impacted by any confirmed or unconfirmed theft. Furthermore, we continue to significantly invest in both the production and security of our TCG business. We value the faith our fans put in us and our products, and these investments are intended to help us continue to maintain that trust. So, very corporate statement. But with any corporate statement like this, they're really just covering their own ass. And so you don't really know. We know for a fact that they made mistakes with this product. For example, when Fusion Strike came out in Canada, there were these boxes that had way too many secret rares. Normally you just get a couple per box, but this was like, there were tons and tons of them. So the ratios were whack. You can see this Espeon, like someone opened 36 packs and got all of these cards, which is, there's some of these are supposed to be 1 in 1,000, you know? So some things did go wrong. Oh, here's the Mew VMAX as well. So they basically got every good card under the sun in these boxes. So things have gone wrong before and they've gone wrong recently, but we don't know the scale to which they've gone wrong. It's worth noting that this set was under production around the same time that Pokemon was having to meet an immense demand due to the like 2020, 2021 Pokemon gold rush that was happening, where cards were out of stock everywhere. People were fighting each other in Targets, you know, and Pokemon in 2022, that's actually when they bought the printing company, Millennium Print Group, and brought them in-house, was I think in 2022 was when that was announced, because they were making all of these efforts to scale up their process so that they could deal with the demand for the Pokemon product. So I imagine that if you're scaling up your process, there's going to be some hiccups that happen along the way. So maybe that's what this was. With all that said, that's all I have for you with the biggest Pokemon theft that we know about that at least happened at the factory or happened directly from the Pokemon company. I find this story super interesting. It covers a lot of cool things about the Pokemon trading card game. And if you haven't tried playing it, I've been playing it a lot recently. It's super fun. And it's also fun to collect, though be careful because it can get really expensive really fast. So with all that said, stay gold, everybody. Bye.